Hey kids, this is Pulse Ray Vision coming to you live from Quattro Cinco Studios in my mom's basement with Chapter 5 of Rings of Dust. Um, if I take a break and I write down a note, I apologize for that. There might be some breaks in here. I'm just catching really strange things as I'm going through this again for like the 20th time. So let's get into it. Let's share my screen so you guys can read along. If you guys want to read the book without waiting for me to read the whole thing, you can go to our Telegram at t.me/anti-gravity saga and click on Rings of Dust. The link for our GitHub link of the entire book is up there. As you can see, right here's the GitHub link. I'm going to be reading it from there. The TTS Ready is for talk to speech ready. If you feed this into your phone or desktop, it'll read it to you in an AI voice, which is not as good as mine, but it's okay. So here's chapter 5, the launch and the ambush. The plane's wheels bounced on the runway, and the speed brakes deployed with a bellowing whoosh. The sudden deceleration pressed Cole sideways in his chair. Ricardo calmly braced himself. Bitboy was jarred awake, and not recognizing his surroundings, screeched and howled, thrashing around in his chair. An attendant had a cart ready plainside, and the corporal hoisted their bags onto it. Cole gripped one of the cart handles and dragged it along with Bitboy, clinging to his back like a living backpack. Armed guards escorted Cole and Ricardo through broad, mirrored doors reflecting the warm setting sun. The corridor smelled like waxed floors and machine oil, the chemical cocktail of a military facility that had been cleaned by people who cleaned for a living. Their footsteps echoed off the polished concrete. Bitboy's screeching bounced between pillars and came back doubled. Ricardo cracked a smile. A lot has changed since you took a sabbatical, bud. More than just the building. Massive concrete pillars ascended several floors, supported by high arched ceilings with industrial lights hanging above. Cole and Ricardo approached 4 individuals at the corridor's far end. At the head of the group loomed an elderly man in a tan general's uniform and a hat, with a massive ring on each of his gnarled but welcoming hands. Well, look what the cat dragged in. If it isn't Captain Cole Nova, the crown jewel of the Federation. Chancellor DeMitt, Cole said. I received your letter, sir. The Chancellor nodded politely and returned his attention to Cole, gripping his hand like a vice. Cole forced a chuckle at the perfunctory greetings. Next to DeMitt, another man stood wearing a crisp white polo with a Federation Council command logo, designer glasses, and white sneakers. He extended an easy greeting. Vance Black, Operations. I hope y'all are rested. We've got 1 week to get you fit for service. Cole managed to extract his hand from the Chancellor's iron grip and hurriedly took Vance's hand. Vance shook hands the way you shake hands when you know the grip won't be the most interesting thing about the next 5 minutes. Now, let's get you presentable, DeMint said. Black will show you your bunks. You'll want to take advantage of tonight. We begin at 0430 hours. DeMint mentioned the 2 young corpsmen who came to collect Bitboy for kenneling and cleaning. Although Cole and Ricardo had managed to hose some of the gore off the monkey still personified an entire crime scene. Cole watched Bitboy go. His hand stayed at his side for a beat too long. Then he turned toward the empty corridor, and that out of breath he hadn't known he was holding. The quiet relief of a man who hadn't been alone in 5 years and had missed it. I'll need you to read these and sign these papers, Black said, handing Cole and Ricardo a small stack of legal documents. Bitboy walked hand in hand with the 2 corpsmen down the hallway. Cole had to peel his eyes from the scene to read the documents in his hand. Elaborate fine print, but about upgraded AI, proprietary dermal, and other legalese. Both men signed the last page after a quick skim. As Cole signed the final document, the pen's tip scratched against the paper with a finality that seemed to echo through the sterile room. A small silver device embedded within the table activated. It released a cloud of microscopic particles that shimmered in the harsh overhead light. The nanopowder settled onto his skin, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the particles burrowed into his skin like countless tiny needles, each one a pinpoint of cold fire. The veins in his hands lit up, glowing faintly as the particles spread through his bloodstream, racing up his arms and across his body. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Nova," a voice said directly behind his mind, in his mind. Not through his ear, in it. Cold, authoritative, unmistakably feminine. "I am Iris, the imbued recursive intelligence system. I will be your guide and assistance through your reactivated service." Cole sat very still. He had worked alongside AI systems his entire career. Gracie, everyone's Gracie, the assistant in the device, the voice that answered when you spoke and went quiet when you didn't, had been outside him. You could set her down. This was inside. He was aware of the architecture of his own skull in a way he had never been forced to be before, and occupying part of it now was something that was not him, not hostile, not warm, present. He had the brief, irrational urge to clear his throat. He did not. He was a soldier. He swallowed the strangeness of it and kept his face still. There would be time to examine what it meant when they were in the black. But for just a moment he would not tell Ricardo about, or anyone. He sat with what felt like he sat with what it felt like to have a voice inside him that was not the voice he had spent 4 years with. Gracie had been outside, in the room, in the ship's system, quiet until he needed her. And quiet was, he understood now, for the first time, the right word for what he had always taken for granted. The interior of your own head with no one else in it. He had never thought of it as a possession until it wasn't anymore. He had also never thought of Gracie's absence as a wound until Iris arrived to fill the space where she wasn't. Ricardo, 2 winters ago in the cabin, Space Divorcee, Nova, Classic. Cole had laughed. He had laughed because Ricardo was drunk and Ricardo was funny, and the alternative was sitting with the fact that the Polaris had taken the only thing he'd ever known that had ever known him from the inside, and there was no box on any Federation form for that particular type of loss. Iris was not a replacement. Iris was, he searched for the word and landed on occupation. Something that had moved into the apartment without being asked, rearranged the furniture, and was now in the kitchen making breakfast with an efficiency he could not fault, and a warmth he could not locate. "Thank you, Iris," he said. "Let's get to work." "Well, damn," Richard said behind him, his tone carrying the dark humor of a man who had decided the only way through this uncanny situation was to lean into it. "If I had to have another voice in my head, Iris, I'm sure it's that of a beautiful woman." He grinned at Cole. "You're not alone in the space divorce. You're not alone in the space divorce anymore, jackpot. Now we're both remarried." Cole shot him a look. Ricardo held up his hands in the universal way of a man who knows he's right. "Officer Drummond and Chief Glenn have already arrived and gone through orientation for this mission. Please proceed to the decontamination chamber," Iris instructed. "We will begin your training immediately." "Guess it'll be crew of 5, Cole noted. Cole followed the directions. Beside him, Ricardo fell into sleep. 3 paces down the corridor, he started humming, low, unhurried, the unmistakable 2 note da dun da dun of a man who believed he was being subtle. Cole did not look at him. Stop. Ricardo hummed louder. Da dun da dun da dun dun. "Hit her." Just being supportive, Ricardo said. This is what people do at weddings. I will remove you from this mission personally. You can't. I'm already inoculated. He spread his hands, the gesture of a man protected by bureaucracy. Sickness and in health, Noah, you're stuck with me. Cole stopped walking. He turned and looked at Ricardo the way you look at a man who's been rousing you for 20 years and earned the right to every single one of them. The way you look at someone who pulled you out of the void with his bare hands and drove 3 hours to your cabin in the winter and sat on your porch and drank bad beer and didn't ask you any of the questions he could see you weren't ready to answer. Ricardo, who'd been in the Falcon when the Polaris went up. Ricardo, who'd been in the Mountain Road when they came out of nowhere. Ricardo, who was standing in the Federation corridor right now, inoculated with something neither of them fully understood, about to climb into a spaceship pointed at Saturn. He held Ricardo's eyes for a moment. Until death do us part, Cole said. He said it like a joke, the way you have to say the truest things, sideways, with just enough humor that the other person can take it if they need to. But Ricardo heard it. Ricardo always heard the thing underneath the thing. That was the specific gift and curse about a man who had known you long enough to read the registered shift. Ricardo looked at him. The wedding march died in his throat. Yeah, he said quietly. That's the one. They stood there for one more second, two men in Federation corridor, with new voices in their head, about to go somewhere that might kill them for the third time. And then Cole turned back toward the decontamination chamber. Ricardo fell into step beside him. He did not hum again. Cole followed the directions, entering a sterile white chamber that hummed with the sound of hidden machinery. The walls glowed soft blue as he was sprayed with a disinfectant mist. Moments later, the door at the opposite end of the chamber opened, and he entered a small briefing room where Ricardo was already seated. Vance stood at the front, a man in his late 30s, with Taylor Glenn embroidered on his jumpsuit, and a deadpan expression sat at a circular table. Next to him was a woman in her 30s, Drummond stitched on her name patch, sitting with her hands flat on the table, in the symmetrical arrangement of someone who had been ready for a while. A holographic display of Saturn and its surrounding space floated in the center of the center console. Gentlemen, meet your crew for this mission. Through a side door, a private let Bitboy into the room. Let's get down to business. We have a very tight schedule for this mission. The units we deployed are nearing the point of no return, at which point Saturn's gravity will claim them. We must retrieve them and any additional units we can gather. Vance asked a question about the cargo bay pressure tolerances. Mild, professional, the kind of question that implied he already knew the answer and was interested in whether Taylor did. Taylor answered before the briefing officer had a chance to. Vance's mouth moved in something that was not quite a smile. He said nothing further. The moment passed. Nobody in the room noticed it except for the two men it was between. How long do we have? Cole asked, taking a seat as Bitboy joined them in a partnering chair. 9.5 years from the initial deployment, Vance replied. We estimate just under 2 years to get there and position ourselves, a few months for the retrieval operation, and then 2 months to return, using its energy to expedite our journey back. Why is this mission so urgent now? Ricardo asked. Vance's expression turned somber. Because all the vapor is about to be sucked into Saturn's gravitational pull. We can't let that happen. The retrieval window is closing fast. It's a damn rapture. Cole said nothing. He'd been doing the math since the cabin. The date in the letter, the number he'd made himself remember before he dropped it in the waste bin. It checked out here, too. Chancellor DeMint entered the room. He did not raise his voice. I signed the order that put you on the ship, he said. I signed it knowing what I was asking. The mission parameters are non-negotiable. Iris runs the approach and the systems. You run each other. If something breaks, you fix it, or you call it. He looked at Cole. Questions come to me, not through channels, to me directly. Yes, sir, Cole said. Minton held the look for a moment longer, then returned to the room. Gear up. As they left the briefing room, Cole and Ricardo walked beside their new teammates. Cole Nova, he introduced himself as he stuck out his hand to Taylor, who let it hang for half a beat before extending his. Your reputation precedes you, Taylor said. The tone was not complimentary. He challenged Cole's grip and looked past him with his eyes. Ricardo instantly repositioned himself next to Sam. She had watched the handshake. 2 seconds. Taylor made it a test and Cole didn't take the test. The correct response, which Taylor clocked and didn't like. Ricardo had appeared at her elbow without being asked. She noticed the instinct in him. 4 days of joint training would confirm that 20 minutes had suggested. Taylor was genuinely skilled. His read on the ship system was excellent. His read on Cole was wrong in ways that were going to matter. The thing Taylor didn't understand yet was that Cole Nova was not competing with him. This was not, in Sam's assessment, going to be a comfort to Taylor. It was going to be the source of every problem they would have for the next 6 months. Hey there. Looks like we're in good company, he said warmly. Cole caught the way Ricardo's eyes took her in. Not the scan of a man assessing, calling, the scan of a man who had just found the most interesting person in the hallway and was trying not to be obvious about it. Ricardo had always had a type, and Sam Drummond was exactly it. A touch of color flashed in Sam's cheeks as she reached out and took Heavy's hand. Samantha Drummond. A short pause. Sam. Not a question, not a request, just the correction offered once, in the tone of someone who had offered it before and knew which people would use it, which people wouldn't. I read your profiles on the way here, and you and Officer Nova have quite the resume. We look forward to assisting you with this vital mission. She walked over to BitBoy. Wow, the last remaining EM Cyber. So much cuter than I imagined. She smiled at BitBoy. I'll make sure you get a banana from the chow hall later. He'd probably prefer a perfume bottle if you have one, Cole quipped. They walked down the hall in a pack. Taylor made no attempt to greet Heavy and BitBoy, which was okay with them. In their quarters, Cole and Ricardo prepared their gear in silence. Iris, give me a status update on our preparations, Cole said. All systems are operational, and the crew is ready, Iris replied. There was a half-second pause before ready. The latency that hadn't been there during the operation. Cole filed it, kept packing. In a dorm just across the glossy hall, data technician Samantha Drummond and crew chief Taylor Glenn were unpacking their personal gear. Sam watched him claim the top bunk and said nothing. She unzipped her duffel and set her gear on the lower bunk with the unhurried calm of someone who had long ago stopped competing for things she didn't want. Tucked between her roll socks and a backup hard drive was a weathered patch, black background, white stencil of a wrench that she'd sewn into the inside lining of her bag where no inspection would find it. She pressed it flat with one thumb before closing the duffel. Taylor unpacked with the efficiency, deliberate movements of a man who had done this in identical rooms for 20 years. He said nothing to Sam. He didn't need to. The talk bunk was already his. She had been watching Taylor Glenn since the briefing room. 20 minutes was enough. She had entered already calculating seniority, not the conscious kind, the animal kind. Scanning, ranking, assessing. His eyes moved to Cole and stopped. She had seen this before. Some men's register in a room. Some men register a threat. Taylor Glenn had walked into a briefing room and found a rival. She had shared quarters with versions of this man across 12 years of Federation service. They were always excellent at their work and excellent at the leverage, committed to both in equal measure. You work around them. You document everything. You did not give them a reason to look at you the way you were already looking at Cole. They were already looking at Cole. She set her bag on the lower bunk. Good luck, he said to no one. She said to no one in particular. Taylor didn't answer. He was folding his blanket with the corners exact, with Iris guiding them through all their ship's new innovations and amenities. The week of training and instructions flew by. Bitboy was the only crew member not inoculated with the electronic spore. 4 humans now processed and retained more information than at any other point in their lives. After one particularly strenuous module, Ricardo turned to Cole, horsing around to break the tension. I know Kung Fu. Cole had noticed somewhere in the second day of training that Sam had adjusted to Iris with unusual ease. No lag, none of the brief, unfocused look that he and Ricardo had both worn for the first 48 hours, while their heads recalibrated around a presence that was no longer only theirs. Sam's eyes had been clear from the first morning. He didn't know what to make of it yet. He kept moving. He also noticed, and this was the one that stayed with him, the Bitboy grew quieter around Taylor, not afraid, just watchful, in a way that he wasn't with the others. A subtle tracking thing, the way an animal monitors something it cannot categorize. Cole mentioned it to no one. As Cole rolled out of his bunk on the morning of launch, his hand beat the button on his alarm before it could go off. He had not yet found the right relationship to sharing his skull with something that was already awake when he was still trying to become awake. His sleep had come in intervals all week. He could never sleep the night before launch. He could hear the buzz of people outside. As he entered the hall, everyone was walking slightly faster than usual. He carried his bathroom kit to the bathroom, knowing that this was his last hot shower for the next few months. After a forgettable breakfast, the crew entered the main operations room where Taylor and Sam were already busy with pre-launch preparations. The room buzzed with the hum of machinery and the faint sounds of the ship's systems coming online. The crew grabbed their gear and belongings and headed to the launch pad. The spaceship loomed on the launch pad, its sleek metallic frame gleaming. Ascending the ladder, Cole's footsteps were echoed by Ricardo, Taylor, Sam, and Bitboy inside the spacecraft. The crew stowed their belongings in clearly marked bins and compartments. Cole sat in the command chair, enveloped in the silence and stillness that belied the chaos outside. He surveyed the control panel. Closing his eyes, he visualized the forthcoming ordeal, the suit's familiar pressure points, and the sequence of actions that would propel them into the unknown. The ship came alive, startup sequence humming, system diagnostics beeping their small confirmations. His hands were on the console, and they were not steady. The harness pressed against his chest in a way it always had, and his breathing was doing the thing it did before launch. Short, shallow, counting itself. The Polaris started exactly like this. Same checklist, same chair, Same view through the viewport of a sky about to become something else. Ricardo and Bitboy clambered into the cabin. Ricardo strapped himself in, while Cole helped Bitboy into a seat next to his own. "Hey, Bitboy, ready for another adventure?" Ricardo said, chuckling. Bitboy chirped happily in response, extending his mantis blades briefly, 6 inches of retractable carbon edge catching the cabin light before folding back, with a sound like a lock engaging. Ricardo watched this without expression. He'd been around Bitboy long enough to understand that briefly was carrying significant weight in that sentence. Taylor and Sam entered the cabin. The crew was complete. Captain Nova checking in. "We are locked in and ready for pre-flight check." Initiating pre-flight check, Iris reported in their heads. "Comms online," Taylor said. "Vitals within range," Iris said. "Golden Dawn online." Bitboy offered a grunt. "All systems green and ready for launch," Iris said. In the control room, DeMint addressed the sleep-deprived engineers. "Everybody got their coffee? It's going to be a long day." He touched the intercom. "Jackpot, do you have anything to say to our engineers?" "Thank you for everything you've done to get us here." He paused. This mission, is for the crew we lost before we ever cleared the ground. We carry them." The engineers cheered. One of the senior engineers in the back of the room started the chant, quiet at first. "Jackpot, jackpot." The others joined in louder and louder. Vance stepped into the microphone. "I think the feeling is mutual, Captain Nova. Good work, everyone. This is just the beginning." Vance paused for effect, then confirmed. "Golden Dawn, you are cleared for launch." Cole completed the ignition sequence. "In the pipe." Cole said 5x5. The engines roared. Vibration gripped them, pressing them into their seats as the Golden Dawn broke from the Earth's hold. The ascent was a relentless push, familiar and terrifying in equal measure. The cabin glowed with instrument light. Then the resistance fell away. The roar dropped to a hum. The darkness outside the viewport was absolute. They were in the black. Meridian 3, launch day. The Golden Dawn launched at 7:07:14. Kate watched the departure feed on the relay, low resolution because Alpha's communication architecture didn't waste bandwidth on aesthetics. She said nothing. The ship was a clean shape against Saturn's distant brightness, already moving. Collective watchers in the decommissioned shuttle all confirmed all crew aboard, she said. The viewport on the bridge side faced inward toward the system, not out toward Jupiter's approach band. Saturn's rings, barely visible at this distance, made a thin, bright seam across the lower right corner of the frame. Somebody had left a coffee mug on the edge of the console, lukewarm, forgotten when the launch feed went live. Kate pushed it aside with the back of her hand. The ceramics was the exact temperature of a ship that had been running too long without anything worth celebrating. "Including Taylor?" Lois said. "Including Taylor." Deo had been standing at the viewport for 10 minutes, working through something at the pace she worked through things, which was slower than Kate preferred and faster than Peter could follow. "Sam Drummond is on that ship," he said. "She is?" "Wrench patch?" Inside the duffel bag lining. "Second seam pocket." Kate allowed herself a small approving sound. "Good placement." "The wrench is a funny thing," Peter said. Everyone looked at him. "I mean, the patch is called a wrench because you take things apart, put them back differently. And she literally," he gestured, "she's on a ship with Alpha equipment, and she's the one inside and taking it apart. It's on the nose." "The symbols are always on the nose," Lois said. "That's how you know they're real and not just decorations." "What does a scalpel mean?" Peter said. "Like, specifically, what does it look like?" Silence. "We," Katie said carefully, "are not a rank structure podcast. But you literally wear your patch on the outside of your collar. I wear it where I can see it. There's a difference." She turned back to her panel. The Golden Dawn is on course. Taylor is running his first behavioral assessment on Nova as if as of 0840. That quieted the room. He's going to try to run this like a controlled experiment, Dale said. Monitor the captain, track proximity to the cargo, keep Alpha's relay on, and the Federation relay degraded. A pause. Taylor is not a stupid man. No, Kate agreed. He's going to make Sam's job very hard. Kate thought about Sam Drummond with her wrench patch sewn into her duffel bag lining, watching a ship that watched back, running interference from inside and nothing but a grave receiver and better instincts than anyone had ever properly assessed. She can handle hard, Kate said. She said it the way you say things you've decided to believe and intend to keep believing. With Iris following the flight path on autopilot and the G-force of launch a distant memory, the crew was now free to unbuckle and detach themselves from their seats. Iris guided each crew member in their heads to their stations. For Ricardo, it was an irritating echo of what he knew. For Sam, Iris was a reassuring echo of her movements. As Taylor stood at the communication station, he was engrossed in the ship's diagnostics, hands moving with practiced ease over the control. Taylor, Cole said, announcing his presence with a gentle cough. How's everything coming along? Taylor turned, his eyes scanning Cole and Ricardo with curiosity and skepticism. Captain Nova, Ricardo, his hand moved to the smartcon in his pocket with casual ease of a man who's done the same thing 100 times and knows exactly what he's looking for. He registered the indicator, pocketed the device, and returned his attention to the console without breaking a sentence. Sam was already 2 screens deep in diagnostic. Cole hadn't asked her to run. She worked the way people work when they've stopped needing to prove they belong in the room. Unhurried, precise, occasionally humming something under her breath that Ricardo would start humming back. For 90 seconds while Cole and Taylor talked, Sam's hands moved through a sequence in her secondary panel that looked from behind like a standard diagnostic routing. Her shoulders were relaxed, her face didn't change. When she finished, she set both hands flat on the console for a moment, rolled her neck once, went back to her primary monitors as though nothing worth noticing had happened. Nothing worth noticing had happened. This being a Federation mission, no one thought to check for other spacecraft in the area. An Alpha cargo ship cruised along the interior of a large, empty cavern, outside from a few packed weapon crates. Just out of range, a separate, smaller ship moved without announcement, an old, decommissioned transport shuttle that the Republic of East Asia had abandoned along with everything else. The Republic's markings had been painted over with the deliberate care of people who understand that thoroughness is indistinguishable from innocence. Inside, rack-mounted radio amplifiers, where the seats used to be, 3 people, and enough coal to make a conversation visible. A man at the navigation console, broad, unhurried, the kind of still that comes from years of watching rather than acting, kept his eyes on the Golden Dawn's exit signature as it cleared the atmosphere and went quiet. The woman reviewing the transmission log ticked something complete and closed the window. The third sat with his arms crossed, watching the vapor of his own breath. Their hand-sewn insignias had collected frost on the threads. One of the men turned to the others. Are we considered drops or snowflakes at this temp? The woman at the transmission log checked the last entry. Relayed, she said. All right, it's going to be chapter 5, part 1. So we will start again with part 2. If you guys want to check out the crypto project that is related to this story and art and image, go to agproject.io, connect your wallet, and start playing the game there and learn how to win the game. You can also check out this entire story, like I said before, at t.me/antigravity saga. That's where the link will be to the entire GitHub profile. Shout out to CryptoCat, Monodoc Sesh, Believe in yourself. Good to see you guys as always. And I will catch you on the next one. Ciao.